Hi, folks. This is Nitin from the School of Management and Innovation here with a new series for you all, Solving Business Problems. In this series, we would be taking up a real world problem and try to understand how to analyze it or make head or tails of it. This kind of solution or approach helps in adding a fresh perspective to a business problem you might be facing yourself and is also great for interview preparation for consulting companies. Please note that the solution provided here is an approximation and represents an approach to handling problems and not a final version of the actual solution. So, without further ado, let's dive into our first problem in solving business problems. Recently, you might have heard the news of the cab hailing company Blue Smart facing issues. One of the reasons for the downturn in their fortunes was attributed to the inefficient deployment of taxis in the regions they were operating in. So, a question might pop up in your head. How many cabs should you deploy in a geography for it to be feasible and sufficient? This leads us to the problem we would be addressing, which is how many cabs does a cab hailing company require to service a city? When you hear a question like this in a consulting interview, or you are facing a similar problem in your business, you might think, how do I tackle this? I don't even know where to start with this. The best way to go about is to look at the problem on a very basic level after removing all the complexity. From the basic statement of the problem, we can derive a very basic solution. The steps that we need to follow to tackle a problem like this are 1. We need to define the problem in a more detailed format, incorporating what all information we might have or want. Step 2. Now we look at breaking the problem into a simple problem and trying to find a simple solution for this problem. Step 3. Identify the key parameters of the problem. Step 4. See what information that you have and what fits the parameters of the problem. Step 5. If data is not present for a parameter, make assumptions. Step 6. Once you have the basic solution, then add more and more complexity in stages and see if the addition solutions hold true or make sense. Step 7. Add more complexity and test your solutions till you find your final answer. So, you see that the approach should be to start with whatever information we have and then make some basic assumptions in order to simplify the problem or make it more coherent to tackle properly. Once we have a basic solution to the problem, then we can add some real world complexities to the problem statement so that we can come closer to a real world solution. Let us look at this problem in a different way by stripping it of its complexities and chasing a simple solution. Let us assume that the city we want to service is the city of Delhi in India. According to the Delhi government website, Delhi covers an area of 1483 square kilometers, of which 369.35 square kilometers is designated as rural and 1113.65 square kilometers as urban. It has the length of 51.9 kilometers and the breadth of 48.848 kilometers. You want to provide a cab service to the entire urban area of Delhi. Assuming uniform population density, a service level assumption that a person can get a cab within 5 minutes of their booking, and an average speed of 30 kilometers per hour, how many cabs do I require on the road so that I am able to service Delhi? Now, doesn't this problem look more serviceable? The assumptions we are making here to start off with are 1. Urban area of Delhi is equal to 1113.65 square kilometers. The target response time is 5 minutes, that is 1/12 of an hour. And the average speed of a cab is 30 kilometers per hour. So, the maximum distance a cab can travel in 5 minutes to reach a booking would be distance is equal to speed into time equals to 30 kilometers per hour into 1 by 12 hours equals to 2.5 kilometers. Therefore, the coverage area per cab, assuming circular radius of 1.5 kilometer, is area equals to pi into 2.5 kilometer square, which is approximately equal to 19.63 square kilometers. And therefore, the number of cabs required would be the area of urban Delhi divided by coverage area of the cab, which is 1113.65 divided by 19.63, which is approximately equal to 56.7 and rounded up to 57. So at least 57 cabs are needed to be available and idle at all times to meet the 5-minute response time requirement. Note that this is a theoretical minimum, assuming perfect coverage and uniform demand. So now that we have a solution for a simplistic version of the problem, next step would be to add some complexity to the problem. Let's assume that the average ride for each trip for the cab is for 30 minutes. Then, how many cabs do I need to service Delhi for the entire 24 hours? So now the new assumptions would be 1. Average ride duration per trip is equals to 30 minutes. 2. Operating time frame is equals to 24 hours. That is a full day. 3. Each driver would be available for a shift of 8 hours. And 4. We want to ensure continuous 5-minute availability even when cabs are busy. Note that if each ride takes 30 minutes, then rides per cab per day is equals to 24 hours into 60 minutes divided by 30 minutes is equals to 48 rides per day per cab. Since each cab is busy for 30 minutes after a ride, we must maintain a buffer of idle cabs to meet instant demand. Let's define A is equals to number of cabs required to be idle at all times, which we saw was 57. U is equals to utilization rate, which equals to fraction of time a cab is busy. From the ride time of 30 minutes and assuming continuous demand, each cab is busy 50% of the time. So the utilization comes at 0.5. So we need to double the number of cabs to ensure 57 cabs are idle at all times. Therefore, U is equals to 30 minutes divided by 30 plus idle time is equals to 0.5. So, total cabs needed on road at any time is equal to A divided by 1 minus U is equals to 57 divided by 1 minus zero point 0.5 is equals to 114. If each cab works only part of the day, say 8 hours, which is the typical driver shift, and you want to cover 24 hours, then the total fleet is equals to 114 into 24 divided by 8 is equals to 342 cabs. Therefore, we see that we need approximately 342 cabs in your fleet to serve the entire urban Delhi, to provide 5 minutes response time, with each ride taking 30 minutes and 8-hour shifts for drivers over a 24-hour period. To add more real world complexity to the problem, let's assume that each driver can work for 8 hours in a shift and then hand over the cab to the next driver for another shift. And each car can function for a maximum of 2 shifts in a day. Also, generally, traffic is not uniform during the day but has some peak hours. So, let's add that too. Let's assume that there are 6 hours of peak hour traffic each day, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. Also, the traffic is slowed down by 50% due to the additional traffic. How many cabs do I need for servicing Delhi in this more complex scenario? We saw in the last problem solution that we need 342 cabs if they work for 24 hours continuous shifts. Given the assumption that cabs are available only 16 hours, the number of cabs required would increase to 342 into 24 hours divided by the shift hours, which is 16 hours. That gives us 513 cabs. Now, with the traffic slowing down by 50% during peak hours, the coverage area is reduced to 1.07 kilometers square. So, number of cabs required during peak is equal to area of Delhi divided by coverage area. That is 1113.65 kilometers square divided by 1.07 kilometers square, which is equal to 1047 cabs approximately. This is the number of cabs required for the 6 hours of peak traffic. Now, if we blend 6 hours of 1041 cabs to 10 hours of 513 cabs, since there are 16 working hours, total cab hours would be 6 into 1041 plus 10 into 513 is equals to 11,376 cab hours. Dividing this by 16 working hours gives us 711 cabs, which is the number of cabs required at any given point of time. Note that there are other issues that can come up in service delivery of cabs, namely cancellations by customers, downtime of the cabs due to maintenance or punctures or petrol filling, and there is a wait time also where the cab reaches the customer but has to wait for the customer to board the cab. Let us assume that there is a 10% delay due to cancellations, 10% delay due to downtime, and 10% delay due to wait time for customers. From the earlier solution, we saw that the number of cabs required was 711. Adding 10% for cancellations makes that 711 into 1.1 or 110% equals to 782 cabs. 10% delay due to downtime makes it 782 into 110% equals to 860 cabs. And a further 10% delay due to wait time for customers makes it a total of 860 into 110 equals to 946 cabs. Till now, we have considered the traffic and schedule conditions, but assumed that the population of Delhi is evenly distributed across the urban areas. However, this is not the case in real life. Some areas have dense population, while some have residents spread out further. Therefore, we should consider that the cab demand for our analysis would be proportional to the population of Delhi, not the area. For this, there are some other assumptions that we need to make. We saw earlier that the total urban area for Delhi was 1113.65 square kilometers and the total urban population was 20 million. Therefore, the average population density would be 20 million divided by 1113.65 square kilometers, which is equals to 17,961 people per square kilometer. Let us divide the area into high density, medium density, and low density zones. The high density zone can be assumed to be 20% of the area of Delhi and with twice the population density. The medium density zone can be assumed to be 50% of the area of Delhi and with average population density. And the low density zone can be assumed to be 30% of the area of Delhi and with half the population density. As per the table given, we can see the areas of each zone, population of each zone, and the demand share. We earlier calculated that the cab coverage during peak hours would be 1.07 kilometers square. Therefore, we can see that the cabs required in high density zone is its area divided by the cab coverage area is equals to 223 square kilometers divided by 1.07 kilometers, which is equals to 208 cabs. Similarly, for the medium density zone, we get 557 divided by 1.07 equals to 521 cabs. And for the low density zone, we get 334 divided by 1.07 equals to 312 cabs. Therefore, the total cabs required is 1040 cabs. Considering the weighted average for 16 hours, which is the time a cab is operational, the total cab hours required would be 6 into 1041 plus 10 into 513, which equals to 11376. Therefore, the average cabs required per day would be 11376 divided by 16, which equals to 711. With the 10% buffer for cancellation, cabs required moves up to 782. 10% buffer for wait time for customers, the cabs required moves up to 860, and 10% buffer for maintenance and downtime for the cabs. The total number of cabs required would be 946 cabs. So, going back to the original question, how many cabs should you deploy in a geography for it to be feasible and sufficient? This solution allows you to get a perspective into the approximate number of cabs required to service an area like Delhi in a feasible and sufficient manner. Note that this is the number of cabs required when we are considering assumptions for population density not based on area. So, this kind of approach would help you in coming up with a solution which considers certain real world factors and assumptions. Based on the actual data that you receive, means that your calculation of wait time could be higher, say 15%, or traffic congestion could lead to 100% extra time. You can add the assumptions accordingly and come up with the final results. This is the basic approach to solving consulting questions for interviews as well as getting an approximate solution for a real world business problem. If you liked the video, please hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon to get notified when our next Solving Business Problems video goes live. Thanks and see you soon.